Brought to you by AT&T. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Jouar, and today is Thursday, November 13th, 2025, and I've got the excellent Jeff Howard here from AT&T. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me today.
I'm excited to have you on because I want to kind of recap some of the devices that are kind of the big hits of the year, as it were, and also talk about some of the future things that are coming up. And, of course, how AT&T plays into all of that. But before we do that, there is a giveaway. So if you're listening right now, stay tuned for the next 10, 15 minutes or so to hear about this giveaway. We're giving away a Galaxy Z Flip, courtesy of AT&T, with service and some accessories. So stay tuned for that with the instructions on how to join that giveaway. Jeff, do you have a top 5 devices of the year?
Absolutely. Look, I think we've had a fantastic year with respect to new device from a form factor perspective. Also looking at the sort of advent, right? And so the building upon with respect to artificial intelligence. So I think it's been a great year. I think when I think about true advancements from a technology point of view, you can't go wrong with the Galaxy Fold, the 7th version, which came out this year.
It is a
thinness of that
powerhouse.
device and performance and the ability to actually support great inventions from a productivity point of view, I think have been fantastic.
I agree.
I also think there are just some powerhouses with respect to true performance, right? You think about the Pixel lineup with the Pro Fold XL, you think about the Galaxy S25 Ultra, all of those great form factors. Both Samsung and Motorola have come out with amazing flip form factors as well. So if I were to think about advancements purely from a hardware point of view, I think foldables in general and the rumors globally of trifolds and what we've seen across the globe, I think it's going to be a fantastic end to 2025 with the momentum that the industry has in general. But looking ahead to 26, I think we have some fantastic advancements coming there as well.
I agree. I think for me, if I had to pick 5 devices right now for the year, I would say the OnePlus 13 that first came in the beginning of the year, because as I'm speaking today, we just got a OnePlus 15. You guys should check out my review. It's on hothardware.com, by the way, a little plug here. But the 15 is a bit more controversial than the 13, and that's why I'm still mentioning the 13, because it came out at CES in January. And I think that's one of the best flagship that's not sold by carriers, but I think is obviously supported by carriers. So if you're in North America and you're looking for a Chinese manufacturer, I think they make some really great technology. That would be one of my picks. The other ones would be, as you said, the Z Fold 7. Absolutely a masterpiece of a phone. Powerhouse, incredible productivity device. I've been on board for folding phones for a while, and I think it's a great device. Another folding phone that is a big banger for me this year is the Razr, specifically the Ultra. Razr Ultra is, I think, the best flip phone. I think there's a lot of options there. Obviously there's a Z Flip 7, and but to me, I think Moto kind of brings something unique to the table that is kind of a breath of fresh air. Then, as you mentioned, Galaxy S25 Ultra, of course, and the phone that I use every day, right? Pixel 10 Pro XL. So excellent. I'm a Pixel user, and it's interesting because you brought up the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, but for me that's a tough one this year. The 9 Pro Fold last year, absolutely a winner, but I feel like it's too incremental. It's not a big enough step this year, considering what Samsung did with Z Fold 7, right?
Yeah, and I think just foldables in general, to your point, right? The form factors are getting much better. I think customers are starting to see the value of larger screens and productivity. Thinness is absolutely a key to that. But just in general, right? When you think about artificial intelligence and the integration work that both Google and Samsung are doing, but to a greater degree, Google, right? The integration work they're doing with respect to AI agents on their devices, specifically Gemini, I think have been really impressive, right? I think consumers are truly engaging on the experience as a whole, truly figuring out how it helps them every day in their lives, makes their life simpler and just more intuitive about the things they're trying to do. So I think those advancements are going to continue as we move throughout the rest of 25 and into 2026.
I agree. Yeah, I want to get to some of those 26 devices, but there's one more device I'm thinking about. I know I already cited 5, but look, the iPhone, the 17 series this year and the Air included in that are, I think, the biggest year-to-year jumps we've seen in a long time from Apple. And I'm here for that because I feel like Apple is so incremental. Even Samsung is, moving ahead with foldables and stuff. And like seeing Apple finally change the design language, with the 17 Pro series in particular, that super thin phone, which I think is in some ways, spec wise, not as exciting as the S25 Edge, but in terms of like, the design and the in-hand feel really blows people away. But the 17 itself, just the base model, it is the most complete base model they've ever made. It's a massive leap from last year. And I think that that's exciting for those of, that are iPhone users, and there's a lot. Most of America as iPhone users. I think that it's exciting for me to see that there's something there that I finally personally feel, oh, I'm connected here. There's something there that I would appreciate as an Android user, like, wow.
Yeah. And I think to some degree, to your point, like they're sort of back to basics, right? Make sure you get the battery right. Make sure you get the display right. Memory configurations, designs are always fantastic. And so some of it is getting back to sort of the core elements that have always been a great leadership quality from an Apple point of view. I was actually very pleased as you're talking about with the releases this year, and obviously consumers are responding very positively to that, to these form factor changes. Sometimes it's a risk, right, to go out and change things that are actually going well.
Let's talk about that one risk, because I feel like there's two phones we just mentioned, the S25 Edge from Samsung and the iPhone Air from Apple, that, are new form factors that are not, gee whiz, wow, like the folding phones are, but I think are very important because with a bit of tuning, like, and I'm thinking like what the Chinese are doing, like OnePlus again, with like silicon carbon batteries, we could have a much better battery life in that form factor. And that would solve the current pain point with that form factor. And I'm feeling like we might see that next year from Samsung and Apple, that they're going to persist and we're going to get what the Gen 2 product is really going to solve the problem. Like, maybe an ultra wide on the Air, right? That is kind of a big hole right now. So things like that, I think, are not to be dismissed. I think right now the market in general is kind of feeling very meh about these thin phones, but I think that with a few tweaks, it could really be a runaway success and benefit the carriers, actually,
Yeah, and I think having been around the industry for a while, I think you see technology advancements like this, like moving to this thin of a form factor across both of those manufacturers, just lays the foundation for a ton of possibilities in the coming years, right? So to some degree, it could be an experiment. It's about understanding what consumers are actually looking for, understanding how they react to that thin form factor. Obviously, there's been chatter about battery life, et cetera. I personally use one of those thin devices every single day, and I find the performance to be great. Fine. And to your point, it's only going to get better.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine, but I feel like we could have out of the gate gotten something a little better if I think Samsung and Apple had been a little more aggressive in their, taking a bigger leap of faith in the technology of silicon carbon, which I think is well proven by now, considering how many phones I have here, global phones from Chinese manufacturers that have 7,000 milliamp hour batteries, right? Like, and that's, again, back to this OnePlus 15 that I reviewed today. 7,300 milliamp hours for a phone that's not particularly thick, has wireless charging, has all the things you expect. So I think we're getting there. I want Samsung, because if Samsung does it, everybody else will. If Apple does it as well, but Apple, I think, is a little more timid. They always come out a little year or two after Samsung on these kind of things. Speaking of which, I think Samsung definitely set the pace for folding phones and how thin and how, sexy they should be. And I think we're going to see more of that. To be fair, the Chinese did it first. Like, I have some phones from China that are as thin as Z Fold 7 came out before. But, that doesn't matter because you're not going to buy them here in North America. So let's quickly talk about wearables. And, for me, I think if I look at next year right now, what I'm most excited about is some new folding phones that are kind of riffing on this Z Fold 7 awesomeness. And I'm also seeing, some smart glasses, like, the Meta Ray-Ban display, for example. I think maybe some competition in that field. Maybe Google will do something on the Pixel line. Who knows? Apple is obviously going to work on something like that at some point. But I think that, and of course, wearables, right? Like our smartwatches. Samsung's a leader in that field on Android. Apple, obviously, the Apple Watch. Where do you think like this is kind of a steady thing for of accessories right now. But do you think there's a chance for the smart glasses in particular to become a bigger deal next year?
Look, we've been a big fan here at AT&T on the Ray-Bans for a bit. We actually sell them in our retail locations today. We have promotions going on consistently with those, $100 off today at our retail locations. But we've been big fans of that because I agree with you that it is sort of the next generation with respect to how you experience the things that are most important to you. So I think it's fantastic. I think the evolution in smartwatches, you see them getting thinner, better battery performance. The connectivity element couldn't be more critical.
Yeah.
You see 5G starting to be introduced, but I think the key to your point is going to be the combination of wearables plus smart glasses.
100%.
So using those as input methods, using those as tools for measurement, et cetera, and having all that data presented in a meaningful fashion in the glasses themselves, I think is going to be a true game changer. Do I think it's going to replace the smartphone form factor tomorrow? Absolutely not.
I mean, we still have laptops. We use laptops every day, right?
And it's absolutely complementary. I think it's going to be a fantastic addition to what already is an exciting lineup of products.
100%. And so for me, I feel look at innovation for 2026, and I think these are innovations that are attainable and will land in AT&T stores. More smart glasses, better smart glasses, more folding phones, better folding phones, but also more thin phones, better thin phones. But I think overall, in terms of pure technologies, I think silicon carbon batteries. I think we're going to start seeing that probably from Samsung first, and maybe actually Motorola is already doing silicon carbon in some of their devices abroad, and they could bring these devices in to North America. For example, Europe has the Motorola Edge 70. Which is basically a 6 millimeter thin phone, just a little thicker than the iPhone Air and the S25 Edge. Now, it's not available in the US yet, but the Edge phones in Europe have come to the US in the past. And that has a silicon carbon battery in it. It's, I believe, 5,800 milliamp hour, which is pretty impressive for a phone that thin. So I think I'm very optimistic about that technology. I think another thing is satellite connectivity, right? That's going to become like table stakes for a lot of people. They want that safety net. And of course, it's also happening on smartwatches. As you said, the connectivity 5G on smartwatches is a big deal, right?
Sure. And satellite, and I think about satellite, right? And you understand our investment today in AST as a provider. Look, it's going to be super important to extend our lead from a 5G coverage perspective, right? Like we have the biggest network in the United States today, the most reliable, et cetera. And I think the addition of satellites only going to continue to improve that. So really looking forward to that, advancing the experience for customers. The good news is our current portfolio of products will support on day one. And so for us, we're really excited about that technology coming down the road.
You know what I always say about NTN? I always say the sky's the limit. Because satellites. We should wrap up, but before we do, let's talk about some of the holiday deals that AT&T has going right now, because I think that's super exciting. So we have mostly Android deals right now, so hang in that with us here. If you're an iPhone user, stay tuned. There's going to be stuff coming. But do you want to run us through that real quick, Jeff?
Yeah, I think we've talked about a lot of the devices that we're going to have deals on coming up currently, and then customers can certainly get it as we move through Black Friday, et cetera. But if you're in the market for a foldable, the Flip 7, it's free on us with the appropriate level trade-in. The Pixel 10 Pro, the XL version of that is also free from a trade-in perspective. Yeah. When you get into wearables and tablets, so a watch or a tablet, we have those as low as 99 cents.
Oh, and you have the kids' smartwatches too, the Amigos from the AT&T.
And we absolutely do. Yeah. The kids' portfolio is something that we launched earlier this year. We feel like we have a really strong portfolio of products. Come in and check them out. I think you're going to be really pleased with, first of all, the experience for kids, but also the safety and security that's associated with that from the parent's perspective, right?
Absolutely.
Only the right content will be available on that. And so that's something that we stand behind at AT&T and feel really good about.
Folks, there's so many deals here. I will link to this press release in the show notes for the podcast. That will be the first thing you see. And you'll see everything. There's stuff for prepaid here too. Like you can get yourself a Samsung Galaxy A15, which is a really great starter phone. There's a whole bunch of great stuff here. The more I'm looking, it's like, oh my goodness. Free Galaxy Buds 3 FE. I've got them right here. They're some of my favorite of the year. Wow, look, that's pretty great. Folks, we have a giveaway. And it's the first time we've done a giveaway in a long, long time on the show. So here's what it is. Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7 6 months of complimentary AT&T service with a Samsung Galaxy Watch 8 and those buds I just talked about, the Galaxy Buds 3 Fan Edition or FE. That's what you will win if you win the giveaway. So how do you participate? Well, you're going to have to go to my Instagram. My handle is Tankgirl, TNKGRL, or to my TikTok. My handle is Tankgirl69, TNKGRL69. You're going to have to look for a post that mentions the giveaway. It's going to be the last post you see when you watch this. And please follow me on social media on one of those two platforms. Like the post, and then of course comment. Comment by telling me why you want this device, what you like about this device. You know, the Z Flip 7 is a pretty great product. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. All right. Well, listen, Jeff, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you being here and telling us a little bit more about what's happening with AT&T for this holiday season, and especially, you know, your thoughts on the technology as it's evolving. I think people always tell me phones are boring, but I'm like, have you seen a Z Fold 7?
That's right.
Right.
Miriam, I really appreciate the time today. It's a privilege to be here and actually talk to you. Thanks
Absolutely.
so much.
Well, listen, let's have you on the show again at some point, talk more about some of the tech that AT&T sells and that's coming. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
And folks, we're back with Anshel Sag of Moor Insights and Strategy. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm, busy as usual, especially this time of year. But I'm not traveling anywhere, so that's a fun one.
You know, it's interesting.
I'll be back at CES.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's coming up next. I mean, what is interesting this year is that it's just been really kind of hectic. More so it feels like than other years in terms of the fall. We're going to speak about this thing. For those of you watching on Patreon, I'm holding the OnePlus 15. And remember, folks, there is a Patreon where you can get the video version of this podcast every week in advance, a day in advance for $5 a month. So patreon.com/TNKGRL if you want to help me out with that. So I had AT&T on for the first 15 minutes. We talked about kind of their fall lineup, some of the specials for Black Friday and the holidays, and what they're kind of looking forward to in terms of tech for next year. And of course, I had to bring up the OnePlus 15 in that conversation because, you know, no carrier carries that phone. And I still feel that despite my mixed feelings about this phone, it is still a disruptor in this market because of the battery tech. How do you feel about that?
I think that's fair.
Right?
Considering that nothing comes close to it in the US market, yeah.
So I know you have some mixed feelings about this phone. I do too. Where do we start collectively, the two of us? Because I know we could probably have a 3-hour podcast just about this phone.
Yes. One, it very much felt like Oppo did not want this phone to be as good as the OnePlus 13 was.
100%. I still think that if you're looking at buying a OnePlus phone right now, you should absolutely consider the OnePlus 13 still.
And you're not the only person I've heard say that, right? Like, that seems to be the prevailing sentiment because it's a much cheaper phone.
But at the same time, I want to say that this is not a bad phone. Like, there's a lot of great things about the phone. In fact, it grew on me during my review period. My issue was, and I know you have that other phone as well. My issue was I went into the OnePlus 15 having already spent 2 weeks with the Oppo Find X9 Pro, which I don't have right in front of me right now, but we're going to talk about the Realme, which is the third element of this triad. You have it there. I've reviewed it on the show, so folks, go back a week or two and you'll get like a full video and everything about my thoughts on it. It's incredibly great. And it's incredibly great to the point where it might even be better in some ways, other than the 1-inch sensor, than the Oppo Find X8 Ultra that came out just 6 months ago that I also have. So that 200 megapixel telephoto is kind of like incredible. And generally speaking, the entire image processing pipeline, the Hasselblad stuff, the Dimensity 9500 is definitely holding its own, but I definitely noticed that one of the things that the Oppo struggles with is thermals and throttling. Like every time, and again, this is not something that's going to matter day to day. If you're running benchmarks, right? Like if you run sustained stress benchmarks, it throttles a lot more than I expected. Other than that, I have zero problems with Oppo. The software is fine. I mean, it is getting a bit iOS-y in general, all three of these OSs, because they're all the same OS essentially. And I want to talk a little bit about the iPhoneification of the Chinese phones. After going, it's kind of swinging the other way, the pendulum. After being very iOS copycat and trying to be like iPhones, the Chinese kind of found their own step and rhythm and way, and then they kind of are swinging back towards the iPhone. And we're seeing that particularly with Xiaomi with the 17 Pro Max. But hold that thought, because I feel like right now, the thing about the OnePlus 15 is that going into it after using the Oppo Find X9 Pro was like, oh man, what a downgrade, right?
I'll give you a different perspective. I got them at the same time.
Oh.
Because it took me longer to get the X9 Pro. But when I had them at the same time, they really did feel like the same phone.
Oh, they are almost doppelgangers. Absolutely.
Right? And we all knew that's just the way things are with OnePlus and Oppo. There's always an Oppo phone you can point to OnePlus at and say they are brethren.
To be fair, just as an aside, the OnePlus 13T/13S, the mini flagship, was the first of that entire lineup from Oppo in general, because I include OnePlus as an Oppo sub-brand, to start that design language, right? So, but you're right. The Oppo is really, I think, driving the design strategy here.
And I think previous generations of OnePlus and Oppo phones have kind of created this weird relationship between the two brands. And I think it is happening at the cost of OnePlus. And I think it's just that we're in a place where OnePlus isn't as important to Oppo as it used to be.
But why?
Because I think they know that they're not going to be successful in the US market. And
but
they don't need to
India.
have a flagship.
They're successful in India.
But I think that's why I think the OnePlus is targeted at India, not the US market. And that's why they care more about the processor and the battery than they do the cameras.
Fair. I think you're right, but I want to add to that. And what I want to add to that is that I think this is a step back for sure, but it's a step back because it reminds me of the OnePlus 10T, which was essentially a gaming phone marketed and packaged as an affordable flagship. This is a proper flagship. This is not an affordable flagship. $899 is not what I would call affordable. It is a very value. It's a good value, I have to say. The fact that it didn't raise the price since last year is a really good value, and you can still snatch up the 13 for $849 right now. And by the way, I have been told by OnePlus that supplies are running very low. So if you want a 13 right now, get a 13 now. But the 13 felt like a proper flagship to me with a value price tag. This feels like a detuned flagship with a value price tag. It's still good value, but it's really pushing hard the performance aspects and the gaming aspects, and it's not as well-rounded because of it. The 13 really hit on all cylinders. And I think the other thing is a lot of the reviewers, especially the US reviewers, who are not like me and like you, playing with the Chinese phones on a very regular basis because I have a global audience, those folks are like, oh my God, the battery life. But I've been living with 7,000 plus milliamp hour now for a year, mostly on mid-range phones, to be honest. But I know what it's like. Of course I want it.
Days.
Right, it's 2 solid days every time. You will no longer charge at night. And if you do, you're really wasting your time and your battery. Like, don't do it. Set the limit to 80% if you're doing that. Yeah, set it to 80%. There's a way to set it to 80%. But see, the thing that bothers me the most about the OnePlus 15, I would summarize it in three big misses for me. The design. In a vacuum, I like it a lot. It feels great in hand. It looks good. It's super durable. That micro arc oxidation finish, I have actually scratched the screen on my X9 Pro by accident by sliding the OnePlus 15 in the same pocket because
That's funny. It's
I
more durable.
it didn't stay and rattle around in my pocket. Like I literally put it in and went, oh, I have a phone in there already. Pull out the phone. And then the next time I use the Find, I'm like, what is that scratch? Oh, it's just a smudge. No, holy crap. And I realized, oh my God, the camera pod scraped the edge of the screen and here we are. So that's super durable, I have to say. And I've got I don't know what color you have OnePlus you have. I have this
I have the sand, but I have it
Sandstorm.
In the fiber.
You know, as I kept
case.
joking on the podcast, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, exactly. Darude, Sandstorm. I love this brutalist design and the color and this super durable finish, IP69K as well. All of that is great. But the reason I'm disappointed in the design is because I thought they were heading in the right direction with the 13. Because 2.5D front and back glass or vegan leather, that was awesome. Because the edges were so thin and it felt so much thinner than it was because of the round camera pod, which for a long time, since the OnePlus Open, really defined the look and feel of an Oppo or OnePlus phone. And Vivo's doing it still. So if you want a slap-sided phones, like all these phones are slap-sided now, very iPhone-like, if you look at them from the front. If you want a phone like that, but with a round camera pod, Vivo X300 Pro, also great phone.
Yep.
I don't have it, but I know it's great.
Me either.
But this iPhoneification, the fact that every phone out there is slab sides, flat screen, round corners, and this camera pod, come on, don't tell me this doesn't kind of copy the iPhone. All of that just throws me off and makes me feel like I'm just not getting what I was wanting, which was something different and unique and unusual and special. And on top of that, the software. Like I will show you some of the software for those of you on Patreon right now. The interface. Oh, first of all, we lost the alert slider. If you look here, folks, there is an action button. It's a copy of the action button. And the interface for that action button is exactly the same. It's called the plus key. But those of you watching on Patreons right now, does that not look like the interface for the action button? It's almost exactly the same. Another thing that pisses me off, check this out. The app tray now has a tab at the top here that says categories. I tap on it. This is iPhone. This is essentially the, what is it called? The app library. Now, I wouldn't be mad about this if you could turn it off, but you can't. I just want an app tray with nothing else in it. And here's the other thing that pisses me off is by default, and this is not just true of OnePlus, this is also Pixel. This is an Android 16 thing. By default, they've split the notifications and the quick settings, right?
Yes.
And you have to turn that back on if you want to swipe from the top and get both every time. Otherwise, it does, the iPhone thing where you swipe from one side, you get notifications from the other side, you get the quick setting. All of this stuff is what I talk about the design in the iPhoneification, which I don't like. Do you feel the same way?
I feel like there's a little bit of iPhoneification on software and form factor. I would say the camera configuration doesn't feel like that, but I still don't like it. I was disappointed when I first saw some of the leaks because I thought, to your point, I like the round bump. And I think the round bump gives you a lot of things. Especially if you keep it in the same place, you can potentially recycle case designs. But really for me, I did like the new material feel. I think that was good. I was a little bit disappointed to lose the slider. I thought that was a very unique OnePlus thing that they just killed off.
It's a bummer because I feel like it was so tactile, and I don't really. My action button right now, or whatever you want to call it, plus key, is set up to be the same: vibrate, silent, and normal. Right? So
same. But I will say, I'm glad. I thought they got rid of the IR blaster, and they still kept it.
No, it's in the camera pod. I thought it was gone too.
Yeah, so I'm actually quite glad that they kept that because it was a unique feature that I have used, out and about. Yeah. And I just feel like it's worth keeping considering how little it costs. And if you can still keep it in the design, you should. And they have. So that was a nice thing because I thought that was gone and over with. But yeah, it's not a very inspiring design, but I do like the lean in on durability. And and it sounds like it's maybe a little too durable to coexist with other phones in your pocket.
I mean, fair enough. That was my mistake for throwing the phone. And also, they didn't send me a case for this phone, unfortunately. So I like to use cases because exactly that.
Same.
Because I have sometimes put phones with another phone in the wrong pocket by accident, and then they will scratch each other. But I was really amazed at how quickly it scratched that screen. And it's no, my Oppo is fine. It's barely visible. But the point is, it's like, this thing is very durable, 100%. The design, you might love it, and that's totally fine. Putting these things aside, I think for me, the biggest thing that's, as I said, it's not as well rounded as 13 because the cameras are downgrade in hardware and in software. And we have no longer Hasselblad partnership here, which we knew was coming, but you feel it, you notice it. Like, I went into it actually expecting the worst, and I was relatively pleasantly surprised. I think the cameras are fine. Like, they're solid, they're competitive. But when you've played 2 weeks like I had with the Oppo Find X9 Pro and you go down to the OnePlus 15, it feels like you're going from an iPhone 17 Pro Max to an iPhone 17, okay? Like, that's the same kind of downgrade in performance. It's still really good, but it's still not good enough.
You know what else I'll say is, looking at them side by side, it feels like the bump on the Oppo is a little bit thicker. Like they have a little bit more
for sure
Z height to work with and pack in more optics.
But OnePlus in the reviewer guides was proud that the tri-prism is one of the thinnest they've ever made. And I'm like, yeah, you made the sensor smaller and the f-stop is worse than last year's tri-fold, prism setup. Like, yeah, of course, yeah. But I'd rather have a bump that's 0.5 millimeters thicker and have a better sensor camera and a better f-stop.
I agree.
So, I don't get it. And then, definitely you notice the noise on the sensors. That's how you notice that there is some issues. But look, don't think you can't take this. Actually surprised me. There's several photos I took. I was like, wow, really good, really solid. For their quote unquote first try as their Detail Max engine. Here's the thing you have to understand, right? Such a load of BS, this Detail Max, because it's really Oppo's default, Oppo, Realme, OnePlus's default imaging engine, the latest one they have, right? That's the reality answer. It's just, they just rebranded a different way. You know how the Oppo also has the action button? It's branded something else. It's the same thing. So Realme UI, OnePlus Oxygen OS, and Oppo Color OS are the same OSs essentially. And the pipeline, the image pipelines on all three phones is the same, except for the Hasselblad pipeline, which is the same plus the Hasselblad tuning, right? It's still the core of the same imaging pipeline. And yes, a lot of the stuff that Oppo's doing is really solid and is clearly in this Detail Max engine. There are some things it actually does better. I think it does better AI zoom than a OnePlus 13 did, 100%. But do you care about that? Is that something you want instead of, generally you want better glass and better hardware? Like, that's just the reality, right? I don't know. I'm just annoyed. Yeah, that's basically it. I think it's a solid phone, but I still think it's not as solid as last time. The charging is the same. 100 watt, 80 watt in the US because of a 120 volt source. And then, 50 watt wireless. All that is great. The battery, awesome. 7,300. You can't complain. 2 days. Oh, one thing I had run into, I don't know if you did in your testing, and I talked to OnePlus and to Qualcomm about this. Thermals are messed up on the OnePlus 15. If you do sustained benchmarks in a slightly higher ambient temperature, like 72 degrees Fahrenheit, it will not complete some of the 3D Mark benchmarks. It will crap out. You have to put it in a lower ambient temperature and then it'll run, and it doesn't throttle too much, but it gets so hot. The phone is literally, you measure temperature on it's 50 degrees Celsius, and you're like, oh man. They need to fix that.
Have not benchmarked 3D Mark yet, but I ran into some issues with Geekbench 6. And what was weird is I got expected scores of 3600 single core, 10,000 multi-core, but then it throttled to like 2,000, 8,000. But then I rebooted the phone and did it again, and the scores went back up. So there's some software issues.
Absolutely. Read my review. I did an in-depth analysis. Dave Altavilla, my editor-in-chief, helped me with analysis because he's much more in tune of these benchmarks and chips. We had some crazy wonkiness. We were never able to achieve, in many cases, the results of the developer kit from Qualcomm. We normally get very close with all the OnePlus and the flagships as soon as they come out. This did not happen this time. Some of the results matched, but a lot didn't. The multi-core and Geekbench 6 was particularly off. And then, this overheating with the 3D Mark, if you run the unlimited versions of particularly the Steel Nomad Lite, it won't finish half the time. It depends on your ambient temperature. It will crap out. It'll say the phones throw the warning of overheating, and it'll literally kill the app. Like the app goes away. So it's like bad. And I'm not the only one. Robert Triggs at Android Authority wrote an entire article about his experience. We got a statement from OnePlus about it. It's in my review. Like, I'm not saying this because it matters, because I'm not a benchmark person. Like, I believe that your day-to-day experience is what matters. And right now, the day-to-day experience on this phone is brilliant, just like it always was. It's super slick, super fast, super responsive. Like, everything happens like telepathically almost. It's fantastic. But I expect that. What I find weird is that normally OnePlus doesn't mess up the benchmarks, in particular when they're marketing this phone as a gamer's paradise. Like, people are complaining it gets warm when you play games, and that's already a bad sign. Like, it should manage that somehow. Yeah. And the 165 hertz, who cares? Like, it was a quad HD display, and it's a 1.5K display. They've lowered the resolution. For what? For the fact that it runs at 120 hertz variable 1 to 120 all the time, except for like 5 games. And if you turn on interpolation for other games, it runs at 165. Like, I'm sorry. Maybe some of you are watching and telling me and screaming rather, saying, you're listening to me saying this and you're like, Miriam, I noticed a difference. 165 is what I want. I believe you, but I don't notice a difference. So I don't care. And more importantly, if you notice the difference, buy a Red Magic or something. Like, why are you playing on a OnePlus?
That's totally what I was going to say. Just get a Red Magic or an Asus ROG phone.
But what are you doing? Anyway, that's my rant.
Speaking of which, I have an old Red Magic right here.
I have the 11 Pro. It just arrived. I played with it a little bit. I actually ran the benchmarks on it, and I did manage to have it crap out as well. So this is not necessarily just a OnePlus problem. This could be a Qualcomm problem. So the Realme here, also Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. This has no problems running the benchmarks. It doesn't overheat. It's super stable. It will throttle when it needs to. It's fine though.
Yeah.
This is the best behaving Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 that I have of the 3 I have. The Red Magic 11 is really solid, but the reason it's really solid right now is because of the liquid cooling and the fan.
I was just going to say.
I did manage to get it crap out on the Steel Nomad Lite Unlimited once, but it was in high ambient temperature. It was like 74 in my room at the time. So I ran it into cooler space and it ran just fine. And it did really well. Like, it maintained 90% without throttling too much. The thing is, I think there's some tuning that needs to happen either on Qualcomm side or on OnePlus and Red Magic's side about these phones with the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, because we're seeing like 56 degrees Celsius was the temperature inside the Red Magic 11 when it completed that. It was too hot for me to pick it up. That is going to destroy your battery and your phone in general.
Yeah, that's
like,
a problem.
I'm worried that the 2 or 3 benchmark I ran that crapped out on this OnePlus 15 probably reduced my battery life by like a year. Like, I swear, because it was so hot, like I couldn't touch it. Like, that's not right, guys. So something is up, but again, don't let that bother you for day-to-day stuff. Like, it's not, you're not going to run into that until you run benchmarks.
I plan on breaking out the FLIR and doing my own testing.
Oh, the FLIR will really help. I didn't have one at the time, but yeah. So look, I did not give it an editor's choice because of the thermal issues, because of the fact that there's some compromises. The downgrades of the display. I know some of you are going to say, well, the 165 hertz is an upgrade. Not to me, because it only runs on certain very rare cases, and it's a lesser resolution display. The downgrades on the camera. I
saw your review.
Yeah, the lack of Hasselblad, the lack of alert slider, all of that. I came close. I still give it a 4.5 out of 5. It's a really good phone, but we got the OnePlus 13, and I gave it 4.75. I gave it an editor's choice. That phone to me was the best phone in the US. even after the S25 Ultra launched. 100%. Like, absolutely the best phone you could buy.
I remember
and there's none of that this time.
I remember all of us were like, Samsung's going to have a hard time beating this.
They're not, because they're being sold by carriers and pushed hard in marketing, and because Samsung people are going to Samsung. But for those of us who know, those in the know, we all knew the OnePlus 13 was the phone of the year. And now it's the Oppo Find X9 Pro. Wouldn't you say? I mean, it's not a US phone, but it's hard to tell. I don't know. It's hard. We've had so many good phones this year. Look, the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, even though it's China only, was a phenomenal phone. You know, the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, I'm sure, is absolutely amazing. I don't have one. You know, there was the S25 Ultra. There was the iPhones did so great this year. The iPhone 17 Pro Max is such a great phone this year. Like, I don't know. The base 17 is the phone everybody should be buying if you're an iPhone user. It's the best value we've ever seen on an iPhone ever. Like, it's absolutely the biggest delta we've seen from a base iPhone to a base iPhone in forever. There's so many good phones out there. So it's hard. But I want to talk about the GT real quick, because look, this is everything the OnePlus is, everything, but with a Quad HD display. It has a better display than the Oppo. Oppo only has the 1.5K as well. And it has a 200 megapixel telephoto. And it has a leather back. It has the vegan leather back. Now, it does have the slab sides and all the BS. Doesn't have a stupid action button. Awesome. I'm happy about that. It does have a 7,000 milliamp hour battery, not 73 like the OnePlus, or 75 like the Oppo. It does have all the trimmings. Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, lots of RAM and storage. This is 16,512. It's got an interchangeable camera pod surround. You see the two screws here. For those of you on Patreon, you can remove these. And they actually sent me another back piece that I can put on. I haven't tried that yet. And it came with a different case, because this came with a case in the box. So when you buy the camera pod surround, you get a case with it. That way you can continue using your case. How cool is that? And comes a little screwdriver in the box and everything. So this phone's great. I love it. I'm really happy. By the way, the camera performance on this is solid. I can't talk too much about like the rest of the phone in terms of like reviewing it, other than the cameras. So I'm going to focus on that. Ryko partnership. There's a Ryko GR mode on here that's designed for street photography and gives you the 28 and 50 millimeter lens equivalents, and you get the film stock options.
Right.
And it's very Ryko. It feels like
simulations.
It's really lovely. But just using it as default, I feel like it might be slightly, it's the same engine, of course, as the OnePlus, but I feel like it might be slightly better tuned on the Realme, which is insane. Anshel, how is it possible that for the first time ever, we have a better flagship from Realme than from OnePlus? Like, we've come close. The GT5 Pro was exactly the same as the OnePlus 12 at the time, except it had an 8 megapixel ultra wide instead of the 48 or whatever that one had, the OnePlus had. That was the only difference at the time. This exceeds it.
I think it's a political choice.
Yeah.
That Realme as a brand is more relevant to Oppo.
Realme is the new OnePlus. I've been saying this for 3 years.
I think that's just what it's become, is they've turned Realme into the new OnePlus, and it's, OnePlus, it's the same natural progression OnePlus had, right? It was a budget device that slowly creeped up to flagship, and the same thing happened with Realme.
I agree. This is a beautiful phone, folks. I'm really loving it. I've been using it more than the OnePlus and almost as much as the Oppo. And just so you know, the cameras are the OnePlus cameras, except the telephoto, which is a 200 megapixel. And it's not the same 200 megapixel sensor as the Oppo. It's a smaller sensor, but it's still a really nice camera setup. And it does have a slightly slower lens than the Oppo as well. So they're not stepping on the Oppo's feet here with this phone, but they're coming close. They're definitely stepping on the OnePlus feet, because this is a better telephoto, and I think overall a slightly better tuned imaging system. Close, but considering these phones work fine in North America, the only thing you might be missing is 600 megahertz on T-Mobile. But honestly, I don't think that's a deal breaker when you're getting a better phone for slightly less money and stuff.
It's a deal breaker for me because it's, a lot of their coverage is dependent on that.
It is for a lot of markets. I understand that. So that's why I'm saying be cautious. But I don't know. I actually have to check. Maybe it does have 600 megahertz. It's a Qualcomm chip, so it might just have it. This is a global model that I have here. If you want the vegan letter, if you want a round camera pod that you can change into a square camera pod, that you can change into a 3D printed translucent camera pod that has a 200 megapixel telephoto, that doesn't have a stupid action button, that, costs maybe a little less, consider that. I think it's a pretty great phone. But right now, if I have to pick one of the three, for me, Oppo Find X9 Pro all the way. Second, Realme. Third, OnePlus. And I would even say that you should ignore the 15, throw the 13 in that mix. And the 13 is probably going head to head with the Realme GT8 Pro, simply because it's better in some ways and worse in others. Worse in chip, but marginally. Better because it has the Hasselblad tuning. Worse because it has 50 megapixel telephoto, and this has 200. It's close. But if you compare it to the OnePlus 15, yeah, the 13 I still think is a good choice, which is interesting. Where do you think they're going to go? Like, I agree with you about the politics and the strategy and the fact that Pete Lau, ever since Carpe left, never really gave OnePlus the love it deserved. They gave it one last try with the OnePlus Open, the 12 and the 13, and I feel like that never paid off for them somehow. Paid off in terms of, media perception, in terms of early adopter tech savvy love from all of us, but it did not pay off in terms of sales 100%. That's why we didn't get the Oppo Find N5, which is one of my favorite phones of 2025, that, is essentially the OnePlus Open 2, because they weren't going to make any money on it.
Yeah, I think where this goes is that OnePlus slowly, which has been happening, becomes less relevant, and it goes by the wayside.
Do you think they're going to leave the US market?
I think it's possible. I think the only reason why they might still be in the US market is to get press from US press.
So that because the India market is influenced by the US press?
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Well, we'll see how it goes. Look, I don't want to count OnePlus out yet. I hope they stay in the market. I hope they persevere. If you're listening, Spencer, we're rooting for you. I feel like this, is not a bad phone, but it's weirdly marketed as this performance-forward device, gaming-forward device, which is not what a OnePlus flagship should be. A OnePlus flagship should be what you had on the 13, a super well-rounded competitor to the Samsung, Apple, and Google phones we get here. And on top of that, you're running it, the benchmark.
I got it to run smoothly. It's not even hot.
Unlimited?
No, just regular light.
Oh, is this a stress test? No, the normal one will run, no problem.
Yeah, I don't
No, I'm talking about the stress test. The stress test is the one that will kill it. Like it will, the normal one, the burst one will run absolutely no issues whatsoever. Anyway, what I'm saying is that I really want OnePlus to come back. Like I think, give us something next year. Like what we need is an Ultra phone here. We need that Oppo Find X9 Pro, but for the US market. That's what we need. And if you can keep it to the same price as an S25 Ultra, $1199 or whatever, yeah. Now then, is game over. Well, it's not, because you're never going to sell as many as Samsung. But you need to get back into the carriers. And I don't think they have any interest in doing that.
I don't think they can.
I don't think they can, you're right. They kind of screwed it up. So
I think the carriers only want 3 brands.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some other stuff here. So the Polestar 4, I finally drove it. And if you are somebody who's pining for a Model 3 performance, but cannot because of Elon, I hear you, understand you. I'm in the same boat. Those of us who do not, will not, and cannot get a Tesla, not because, in my opinion, they still make the best electric cars in North America, but not because of that, but because we have a conscience and we will not support somebody like Elon. For those of you, I have a solution. The Polestar 4 is your solution. It is not a, whatever they call it, an SUV coupe, electric SUV coupe. Forget all that. That's just so people don't hear the word sedan, because it really just is a very sleek, very low. It feels like a car, a normal sedan. And it has a hatch, which is cool, but doesn't have a rear window, which is also weird, but actually turns out to not be that big of a deal. I loved it. It's more expensive than a Model 3, yes, but it's way nicer than a Model 3 in terms of build quality, fit and finish, materials, all that stuff, even though Highland is a much better car. But you get stocks, which is nice, and you get lots of really good tech-forward stuff. This is the closest to Rivian and Tesla in terms of user experience, like software experience, that I've had in a car in North America. Volvo, Polestar, which are part of Geely, whatever, the Chinese manufacturer, are definitely putting the best effort at making software that is essentially what I've always said that software should be in a car. An iPad on your center console. We all know how to use an iPad. We don't have to drill through menus. We don't have to have complicated things. Give us big touch points, big bold colors. It doesn't have to be Baroque and super decorated and weirdly customizable like the Germans. Oh my God, the Germans. I love you guys, but come on, like, can we please stop with the Baroqueness of your user interfaces and your infotainment and your software systems? So, yes, very, very great car. Loved it. There needs a bit of tuning on the steering side of things. There's some wonkiness there, but I think that's fixable. The rear-wheel drive has really great steering, so we know that they could do it with the all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive is always going to be a bit worse in terms of steering because you get that front motor. But wow, this car, super great. I knew when they announced it and I looked at it, I was like, if I had to buy an EV and it can't be in Tesla, this could be my next EV. Now I know. Thankfully, I don't have to buy a car because I can borrow cars from the press fleet. But if I had to buy a car, I would spend the extra money and get that one. Great car. Have you looked at it? Have you any
want to test drive one.
Have you driven the Polestar 3 yet?
I have.
It's an SUV.
It's weird looking, but I'm also oddly attracted to it.
Exactly. You summarized it 100%.
I like Polestar in general.
Me too.
I think my biggest concern is there's not that much confidence in the brand outside of
there
EV
is zero
fans.
confidence in the brands. And I think also the fact that half of them are serviced by Volvo dealers.
Yeah.
And there's very few Volvo dealers to start with. And you're still dealing with a Volvo, like a dealership model. Like you're still dealing with all the BS you get from.
But it's like the front end is modern, but the back end is archaic, right? Like,
yeah,
front end is very Tesla. Like they've got stores and malls. You can, you're ordering them online. That whole spiel, right? But then the service structure is just, to your point, archaic.
Yeah. And also, if you live in the middle of nowhere, good luck finding a place to get it serviced and fixed. It's not like, Tesla at least will come to your house or something, or Rivian will come to your house,
Well, I was just going to say, I recently found out that Ford now comes out to your house to service your vehicle.
Nice.
With the Mustang Mach-E at least. So they're, being able to meet people where they are is huge. And, I'm hoping that more of these EV brands also modernize their logistics for parts.
I mean, the reality is, besides that which they can do, the biggest problem we have right now is dealers. Like that, we have to get rid of the dealership model. And I'm sorry, but with our current regime, I don't think any of the things we were hoping for, better electrification, like all those steps we were taking to go forward with our regime, and the fact that Elon is lining up with our regime and doesn't seem interested at all in making cars anymore, and only is interested in robots and autonomy. With all that happening, the lack of incentive for EVs, the lack of infrastructure spending, the lack of laws that favor a non-dealership model, with all of that, we're really going backwards in the United States. We're going to be screwed by the rest of the world in terms of automotive tech and in terms of our car ownership experience going forward. We're going to be a third world country when it comes to this stuff. It's sad. And I think it's only a matter of time before Canada gets the Chinese to come in like Mexico did, on condition that they build factories, that they hire Canadian workers, that we can audit their software inside and out for cybersecurity. And then the Canadians will get affordable EVs that are awesome. And when you go as an American to Mexico or to Canada on vacation, you're going to see these cars and go, holy crap, we're so behind. Because we already are.
Well, we had a chance and we blew it.
100%. So, I don't want to be negative, but here's the thing. The Polestar 4 right now gives you the best of all those things today in the US. So, if you want Polestar to survive as a brand, because honestly, I'm not sure. Like, I think that Volvo's fine. They're going to stick around. But it's hard to justify a premium electric-only brand that nobody's ever heard of. That's essentially part of Volvo. I mean, even though technically they're separate because of this dealer and service setup, it's hard to justify that brand sticking around. Now, fortunately, you know that if Polestar disappears tomorrow, Polestars will be maintained and serviced and everything for years. That's not an issue. It's not like Lucid. I'd be really worried if I was in Lucid right now. I love their cars. Oh my God, so much. I want a Lucid Air so bad. But I would hesitate right now. I don't know if they're going to be around much longer, even with the Saudis funding them. And then the Saudis funding them itself is a big problem, like ethically. Like, can we talk about that? I don't want to talk about that, to be honest. We have other things to talk about. But I think you agree, right? It's a quandary.
I don't think Lucid is in as much a dangerous spot financially as they used to be.
No, not right now, but...
No, not right now. But there definitely is an ethical quandary. Just like there's an ethical quandary with Tesla. It's just a different one.
Correct.
And yeah, you have to make that choice. You know, when I first got my Model 3 Performance, I actually wasn't looking for a Tesla. And the reason why I got one was because my hatred of Donald Trump and his winding back of fuel efficiency standards trumped my hatred of Elon. And that's effectively what happened. I had to make a choice of which is the lesser evil. And I think that's kind of the case with some of these EVs. So, you do have choices. You know, I have a Ford Mustang Mach-E. It's not a bad car.
I like it a lot. I
think there's a lot of choices out there, and I hope there will be more of them. But yeah, you're right. We are moving backwards in a lot of ways, and I hope that Rivian and other brands will help us move forward.
Well, Rivian is what I have a lot of my hopes on. My concern with Rivian is that obviously they are, they're a brand that caters to like SUV and outdoors enthusiasts. That's not who I am. Now, their cars are going to be great. Like the R3X is the one I'm really looking forward to. But it's still a kind of that adventure thing. Like that's why I like the Polestar 4. That's why I like the Mach-E. That's why I like the Ioniq 6. That's why I like the Model 3, is because to me they're just cars. I want a sporty, affordable, practical car. I don't want a crossover. I want an SUV, even though the R3 is more like a Golf or a Lancia Delta or something. In that sense, I'm on board. But I'm just saying, like, if Rivian also, and I don't want Rivian to diversify to the point, like right now they have to stay focused on this adventure vibe, right? 100%. But like, you know how Lucid is? Like I want Lucid to be Rivian or Rivian to be Lucid. You know what I'm saying? In terms of like the kind of car I want? Yeah. But that's where the Polestar 4 fits in, folks, because I think it delivers something. Just be aware that, here's the thing. Lease an EV, always lease an EV, because that way you don't have to worry about how long will the company be around, blah, blah, blah. Lease. The resale values are terrible right now, worldwide, the US particularly, although there are some really good deals. If you absolutely insist on buying, buy a big brand that's going to be around for a while and buy used, because 1 year depreciation on an EV is awesome for your pocketbook. I want to talk about automotive tech a little bit, specifically lighting, because I'm actually writing a story right now for Tech Radar about that. And it should be out in the next few days, maybe week. So automotive tech, lighting tech has evolved so rapidly and so drastically in the last few years. It's really fascinating. And, kind of ties in with the Polestar, because the Polestar has ambient lighting. Every car nowadays has something like that. But if you looked at my Instagram reels, there is, the way you change it is, they have the planets, like they have an interface with all the planets of the solar system, and every planet has a color scheme associated with that. And it's beautifully rendered, animated 3D, like, like some kind of like gaming engine is running the thing. And it's like beautiful, and you swipe through, and as soon as you change planets, the lighting matches. Of course, you can fine tune it to whatever you want, but it's really, really well done. And that's what, it kind of made me think that, plus OLED taillights on Audis and other BMW cars, for example, plus matrix headlights that are very prominent. I wrote a story for Tom's Guide back in September about the new Mercedes, the GLC EV that's coming up. The first, from the ground up EV they've done since the CLA. New platform, 800 volt, basically competing with Porsche Macan and, the best of the best out there. And that's coming to the US like early next year. I got a preview in Germany, and they have an illuminated grille. Get this. This is so cool. The grille is pixels. You can display anything you want on the grille. So it does look like a Mercedes, like the old school, with the square holes, but the square holes are not holes. They're actually individually addressable pixels. So you got a matrix of something like, I don't know, a few hundred by a few hundred pixels. You can do some really, and the RGB, so you can do some really cool stuff. Unfortunately, Mercedes being very old-fashioned, they're just scrolling like an animation that started up and shut down. They're not really doing anything with it. Now, there are laws that don't let them do stuff while the car is driving. That's fair, even in North America, but particularly in Europe. But if the car was parked, wouldn't that be great to show like a custom animation? You can upload a GIF from your phone to the car, and it'll play the GIF in, and you can find your car in the parking lot, or like charge state levels. Like, I had long conversations with the product people. I'm like, I know it sounds a little weird because you're Mercedes, you have a certain brand, a perspective, and a style and a vibe. But for China, you'll want to do that. The car is going to be super successful in China. So why don't you give us that functionality in North America? You might attract some of your customers. But all this to say that, between matrix headlight, LED taillights, ambient lighting, and this illuminated grills, which, we've seen in other cars in China. Some cars in China have like a display at the bottom of the windshield on the outside that can say things, and, animations that can play in the taillights and stuff like that. It's really great stuff. I'm going to have an article on all this. And the reason I bring it up is because I've had a chance to see the evolution of Mercedes' lighting in the last, the last few years that I've been reviewing these cars. But this year particularly, because I've went through 4 different cars that I borrowed from the press fleet. And I grabbed them specifically to kind of see that evolution in lighting, especially because Mercedes was really one of the first to do like RGB ambient lighting that's animated. The early stages are represented today. If you were to buy an EQB 300, so that's one of the cars that I drove earlier this year. And it's, an affordable for Mercedes, like the entry level compact SUV. And, it's an old electric platform. The range isn't super great, like 200 miles on a good day. It charges slowly. It's really not the car that I would say you should buy unless you're just puttering around town. And because of that, the tech stack is older, and the lighting tech in the car is older. And it's got basically what I would like to call like the first generation of Mercedes ambient lighting inside. And so, yeah, you can change the colors, but you don't get as many options. You don't get multi-zones. You don't get animations. It's very minimalistic. Same with the G-Wagon. I got to drive the G-Wagon Lexus, the G580. Amazing. Oh my God. Anshel, have you ever driven a quad motor EV? Okay, so you got to borrow an R1T or R1S quad or the G-Wagon not because of tank turn, that's cool, but because once you have torque at every wheel, it's like that thing handles like on rails in curves.
Yes, it's a torque
Even
factor.
That big, tall, crazy G-Wagon. Yeah, look, I'm 100% in agreement that the V8 G-Wagon got all the drama, the noise, the rumble, it's really fast too. It's incredible. But if you want even better performance, when you can live without the drama of the sound, the G580 is, oh my God. And so that one has a newer tech that matches more or less what you see in the EQS, EQE. And, but it's because it's a very old platform that they keep updating. They weren't quite able to shoehorn all that tech in there. So it's interesting because it sits kind of between the EQS, EQE, and the EQB, which is an older platform in terms of ambient lighting and the experience general of the infotainment, the ADAS and all that. It's really solid though. Like I came out of the G580 thinking to myself, if I had the money, I would lease this. It's such a baller of a car and it drives so well. The only thing is range is abysmal on the freeway. It's great range on paper. You're literally moving a brick through the wind, like not good. Anything over 65 miles an hour and that thing just tanks in range. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because then there's the EQE, right? And the EQS. I got to drive the EQS 400 this year as well. And the EQS 400 is kind of like the current state of the art of what Mercedes sells, right? Like it's not the GLC that's coming soon that I got to see with the grill and stuff. That one, the ambient lighting, it's insane. Like you can change almost anything you want in terms of lighting inside the car. All the zones are addressable, RGB everything. Like you can literally have it played to the beat of the music. It's just crazy stuff. But the EQS and EQE are kind of in the middle, and they're, I feel like, almost there, almost as crazy as GLC, but not quite. And it's really interesting to see how, personally, I feel like I don't really even need ambient lighting in my car as long as I got enough light to see where my feet are and stuff. But I think for a lot of people, apparently in China, this is a huge deal. Like they want the stuff in their car and they want to be able to change it. They want to be able to have it animate and whatever. So I hope Mercedes gets that, feedback I gave them of like, make it programmable fully, like send GIFs to the stuff, like send an image and use that as the color scheme, like analyze the picture, set the color scheme based on that, kind of like what, the social media apps do when you do a story and you just post a photo and like it does a surround that matches the colors. I mean, what's your take? You have a Mach-E, you're like, you're pretty simple. You have simple needs. You don't care too much.
No, I don't need that much, but I will say that like I think this is kind of like that hyper personalization thing that we're seeing across all consumer electronics.
Yeah.
And I think I will say as a former Tesla owner, there were definitely numerous times where I had mistaken someone else's Tesla for mine, until I made some modifications. And I think that's why a lot of people do modify things like a Tesla, because they want it to be easier to find their car. Like, I got these really rare hubcap covers, right? But they were so rare that like it was really easy to find my car compared to all the other black Teslas. So I think these kind of personalization things, one, make it easier to find your car, but two, they make you feel like it's more yours and that it fits your personality, because a lot of these cars are pretty blank slates and we're not really experimenting with very aggressive colors. And then on top of that, people wrap their cars too. So I just think there's a lot of interesting ideas. And like, I think if you remember, Porsche recently showed that like reactive paint on their EV Macan that wasn't like a real thing, but it's like kind of showing like, uniqueness and hyper customizability that like everyone seems to be wanting right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, the EQS 400 for Emblem, one of the things that I thought was interesting is the interplay between the lighting and the seating surfaces that were lighter color. So, there was kind of like a certain amount of kind of ambient reflections of the light onto the seats. And you could tell it was done on purpose to reflect a certain way. Like this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about where like, I'm not a designer, but I do appreciate good design. And even though I think it's over the top and again, very Baroque for the Germans in particular with their ambient lighting to go cray-cray, but I think China loves it. And I think some other people love it too here in North America. And I feel like it's the future we're heading into, customization and how it's easy to do with LEDs. Like LEDs are so cheap now and, so ubiquitous that I think it kind of makes sense. But I want to see more matrix type, almost display surfaces inside the car. I have a Genesis GV70 electric right now that I'm driving, and it has literally like, it looks like starry night on the door panels at night. It's hard to explain. Like all of it is the same color. So when you change ambient lighting, it changes the color of the stars, as it were. But it has this kind of pattern of lights behind the door card. The Polestar 4, the fabrics are transparent enough that the LEDs are inside behind the fabric, lighting the entire panel. It's very interesting how they're trying new things. And you've obviously, I'm not sure if you ever seen, I've never seen it in person, but maybe you have the Rolls-Royce fiber optic headliner where you can literally have shooting stars animated on it and stuff. Like, yeah.
It's
anyway,
nice,
so expect an article that covers all this on Tech Radar soon. And finally, this is a weird rumor. Okay, I can't wrap my head around this one. What do you think of this? Tesla is testing CarPlay, Apple CarPlay, for potentially putting in their cars. That seems really weird to me. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a positive thing. I think it's also something that they should have done a long time ago. As someone who, it was one of my biggest pet peeves when getting a Tesla was just the lack of choice. But I think they should also enable Android Auto if they're going to enable CarPlay.
So the Polestar 4 only has CarPlay as well because they have an Android automotive system. They're like, well, you log in with your Gmail and you get all your stuff. Interesting, right? But Tesla does not have Android automotive, so I think you're right. They should do both. I'm actually anti-projection, you know this, but I'm not saying this is a bad idea. Like, I understand for some people it really matters. But I feel like Tesla, of all the companies out there that's not doing CarPlay and Android Auto, has a really solid system. And I've played with the latest software now. It integrates, the Tesla app integrates so well with your phone that you have access to anything and everything on your phone on the car now. Like, it wants so many permissions. I'm a little worried, actually, honestly, about what the Tesla app wants. But CarPlay only, weird. But maybe because they're losing market share, they're like,
I mean, the truth is, it's a sticking point for some people, right? Because if you don't have CarPlay or Android Auto, you are forced to pay the $10 a month to get full functionality.
But you need the full functionality because that's the only way you're going to get good route planning, right? Like, we all know that's the
what
thing.
I'm saying, though.
Like, on an EV, the native software it makes all the difference. So I don't know how they do that. Because look, the nav routing for charging does work even if you don't pay for data. I think that's
but no traffic data.
No traffic data, yeah.
And you get lower quality audio on Spotify.
$9 a month is a really good deal for that data plan, though.
I don't know. Every time I tried to use it outside of Maps, it was kind of crap. Like, YouTube was super slow.
That's because you had the old infotainment. It's gotten really good. They have YouTube Music now as one of the apps as well. Yeah. I mean, this is a weird one. Let's see how it develops. We have a few more things left here. What do you think of these rumors that the Galaxy Trifold from Samsung's coming next month? Is that what you're hearing as well? This would be called the Z Trifold, apparently. But this is not the US. This is China and Korea, right?
I believe it's Korea first.
Okay.
I think they should launch a trifold in the US because it would give them market leadership here. And it would also give them something to compete with Huawei in China. But truthfully, I think that this is more, a trifold is going to be a very low volume product. And it's very much a thought leadership product that builds the brand for
it's a halo,
the lesser 100%.
Ones. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally,
but I think, so you think this is happening, those dates, the prediction that it might be coming out in December? You think so? Okay. And what about the US? Do you think we'll see it announced alongside the S26 lineup or separately?
I don't know, because I feel like I don't think they want to minimize the S26 by showing a trifold. I think they should.
Yeah, it would take the wind out of it, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Edge did last year a little bit at the end there. But, and speaking of which, you saw all the saga for the last few weeks of, the S26 is delayed till March because FCC approval, because the government shut down, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that the latest rumors, which are saying that it's back on track for January event and February launch, are true? Or like, Do you think there's more than the FCC and the government shutdown involved here? Do you think there is some issues with chip procurement around the volumes of Snapdragons they're going to need and or of Exynos yields? Like, what's your thought in general on this?
I have heard neither January nor March, but a February launch.
Okay.
With March availability. So like
okay, so a little later.
Maybe like a pre-MWC launch.
That's what I heard as well last time, and now we're hearing again it would be late January with in stores February.
Here,
so
I would love a late January launch for a lot of reasons.
I don't want to have to review the S26 during MWC. For me, that's my only selfish reason.
Yeah, same.
Well, let's see what happens.
Also, just the travel too.
Oh yeah, right. But also, it looks like we're going to get the Qualcomm chip on all the Ultras worldwide, and then we're going to get Exynos in some markets on the other two phones, the S26 and S26 Pro, or whatever the Plus is going to be called again. And that seems totally normal. Like they did the Exynos on the Z Flip 7. Yeah.
Yeah. And the FE.
Yeah, and the FE. So I think that's valid. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. iPhone Pocket. I just want to bring that up because it's ridiculous and weird and so Apple. And so, oh my God, I don't know what to make of this. But yeah, you can buy.
I don't really have much
sock.
of an opinion.
No, neither do I.
Just
if
the
you
price
like it,
is a little bit crazy.
Oh, the price is insane. If you like it, buy it. If you want a sock like the old iPod socks for your iPhone, but that costs way more money, and is now a sling that you can wrap around things, comes in different lengths, in some partnership with some fancy Japanese brand. I mean, look, it's wild. This is why I love Apple. They're wild and expensive. They're always expensive, you could argue. But then again, when you buy a Galaxy S25 Ultra for $1199, that's expensive, guys. That's the reality. So I don't know. iPhone Pockets, they exist. Tell me the social media folks, what do you think of the iPhone Pockets? I'd really like to hear your thoughts. DJI Neo 2, you're a bit of a drone guy. This looks really cool for the money. Should I replace my Mavic Mini with one of those?
Not quite.
Okay.
You lose some of your controllability of the drone.
Oh, this is more of an autonomous beast?
Yeah, it's a lot more like a selfie stick in the air. But it's like, for the money, to your point, it's pretty good. That's the whole point of the Neo line. It's just that we probably aren't going to get it in the US.
Yeah, well, the whole DJI thing, yeah.
But
I'm in Canada. I can buy here.
Yes, and the truth is, like, it's good for like content creation and people who don't want to actually fly a drone but want to have drone shots.
Great. I love the summary. That's good. And I think it looked like $230 or something like that, at least in Canada translated. Cool. Well, I might buy one because, I'm that person. I have a Mavic Mini because I don't really know how to fly it very well, but I do the automated thing where I tap on my car and I tell it to fly around the car or whatever, So I'm probably the best candidate for completely autonomous experience, right? As it were.
Yeah.
Okay. Philips is making smartphones. Okay, well, there's a big asterisk next to that. Zenotel in India, a local brand of smartphones, is making smartphones that are really low end under the Philips brand. Somehow they got licensing on that. And, I love me a really cheap phone with a Unisoc chip. That's just me. There's something magical about cheap phones with Unisoc chips. What are your thoughts on branding here? And it's kind of cool, right?
I don't know why anybody cares.
I mean, I care because it's wonky, and I've got an audience in India, and there's a Unisoc chip, and it's just like Philips caught my attention, and I was like, okay, Philips is making phones. Oh no, it's a brand deal. Okay, and then I'm like, oh, maybe the phones are cool, and then I'm like, oh my God, Unisoc. These are, I mean, even for India, these are low end phones.
Yeah, so, I just think I feel like brand isn't that important anymore. And if it is, people are already buying those brands.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought it was interesting, and I was
you know what? They'll probably have these phones in just random electronic stores, and they'll have them next to like Philips, toothbrushes or whatever, and people just see the brand and buy it because of the brand.
Yeah, it's great. That's why I was like, I got to talk about this. This is just so cool. I mean, some of you are not as old as I am out there listening right now. And but I mean, Philips, I grew up in Europe and I grew up in the 70s and 80s. Philips was a huge thing. So, seeing Philips on a smartphone, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like this, it resonated with me somehow. So I think maybe that's why I included it in the topics. Anyway, listen, we should wrap up. Anshel, do you want to tell folks where they can find you on social and tell them about your Forbes stuff and your Moor Insights and Strategy stuff, all that good things?
Yes, I can be found on all social media platforms under Anshel Sag. I regained my Twitter account after getting locked out like many other people did. I'm actively on Threads and Blue Sky and LinkedIn. I also occasionally post to TikTok and YouTube, so I'm kind of everywhere. And I am still principal analyst at Moor Insights and Strategy. And I am doing all kinds of stuff, although I'm not traveling much this quarter. The only exception is I am going to the Las Vegas Grand Prix, which will be fun.
Ooh.
That one's thanks to T-Mobile. And then I will be at CES. I'll be back in Vegas again 2 months later for CES. So that's about it. I will post pictures from the Las Vegas Grand Prix. I will tell you they will not be as good as my pictures from CODA back in 2018 when I went with Qualcomm, because they do not allow DSLRs with interchangeable lenses in Vegas. So I will have to bring my Fuji X100T with me instead, as well as a plethora of phones for testing.
I was going to say, you have an Oppo Find X9 Pro. You're all set.
Yes. This will come with me.
Well, I'm looking forward to those photos. And while you were talking, I was showing the Patreons, the two phones that we talked about. You know where to find me, folks, on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl, TNKGRL, like the comic book character. Tankgirl, just drop the vowels. That's my handle everywhere. I'm primarily on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky these days. I also have a TikTok, TNKGRL69. That's my year of birth. So if you couldn't get my handle, so if you want to find me on TikTok, there you go. Tell me and Anshel what you think on social media. Follow us, all that stuff. You know where the podcast lives. It's at mobiletechpodcast.com. If you're new here, please go subscribe. We're on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, everywhere good podcasts can be found, Pocket Casts, etc. So please subscribe. If your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that. I'd appreciate it. And then we have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast, of course. There's some segments out of the podcast that I kind of take out and like 10-minute chunks here and there, and I put that up. There's unboxings, there's reviews, there's hands-ons. You'll see an unboxing of the Oppo Find X9 Pro. That's the last video up there. So if you want to help me out, check out the YouTube, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. You know how it works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment, all that good stuff. I mentioned the Patreon a few times on the show. If you really want to support me, financially support me, there is a Patreon. $5 a month gives you a podcast every week, a day in advance. You get it before everyone else. You get it on video. You get to see our faces. You get to see me showing those devices and my guests showing their devices. And more importantly, you get extra content. I generally have to cut stuff out because of time, and you get all that, in the Patreon. So consider supporting me on Patreon, patreon.com/tankgirl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. And I want to thank our sponsor, AT&T. As I mentioned earlier in the show, there is a giveaway from AT&T. So they're giving away a Z Flip 7 with 6 months of service, a Galaxy Watch 8, and Galaxy Buds FE3 to one lucky listener. So how do you partake? Well, very simple. Go to my Instagram or my TikTok. First of all, follow me, number one. Number two, find the post that mentions the giveaway of this specific phone. You'll find it. It's probably going to be the last post when this podcast gets published. Find that post, comment, and tell me in the comment what you would use that phone for, what you like about it, anything about the Z Flip 7 and that entire thing. Let me know, comment, say something nice, like, of course, and then we will send you a Z Flip 7 with 6 months of service, Galaxy Watch 8, Galaxy Buds FE3. So I hope you partake. And I want to thank AT&T again for sponsoring the show and making this giveaway possible. And Anshel, thanks for being my guest again.
Of course. Always happy to come.
It was a blast. And folks, we'll have a show next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.